USMCA, and what more do we expect from Canada at this point?
Well, I'm not looking to renew it. We don't need anything that Canada has. We don't need anything that Mexico has, but they need everything that we have. We don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything that they have.
Oh boy, is Canada about to learn the meaning of F around and find out. The deal maker extraordinaire spent an entire year promising you what he could never deliver. And there is so much pain on the horizon no matter what the CBC, the Liberals, and the pundits so desperately try to convince you otherwise. So let's take a look at what this means going forward and how the suffering has only just begun. My name's Ali Degno and this is The Right Call. Like, share, subscribe, hype this video up. Any interaction on this channel helps push the truth out and maybe someday help break that CBC-induced coma that sadly so many Canadians are under even on this Canada Day. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button because if you like the truth, you found the right place. Woo, she's a hot one today. If you're wondering why I'm all glistening and glossy, it's because I was outside taking a bit of sun, trying to enjoy the day instead of doing this report. But it's too important to pass out on because today's news is not a good one. So I'm still a little bit sweaty.
Today we celebrate an incredible country that spans 3 oceans, 6 time zones, and 10 million square kilometers of breathtaking landscapes.
You can tell that we're July 1st and we're not in June anymore because it's only Canadian flags. There's no pride flags.
A nation of monumental scale and diversity built and bound by a great conviction.
A great conviction. How much money can Brookfield make on the back of Canadians?
We are strongest when we're united. A conviction that was declared in 1867 when 4 colonies became 1 country, betting that together they could build something greater than the sum of their parts. A conviction that was laid down in steel in 1885 when we built a national railway.
By the way, you want steel? You need carbon, Carney, so there's a little bit of a messaging issue here.
Linking east to west. Canadians have never just imagined a stronger, more united country. We have picked up our tools and built one. And at this decisive moment, Canadians are once again turning our conviction into action.
Can this speech be any more monotone and even less joyful for Canada Day? Jeez, but it feels like he's got a gun to his hand being like, you must address Canada. It's like, I don't want to do it.
Choosing to build big with Canadian workers, Canadian materials, Canadian values. Choosing Canadian produce. Rediscovering our country from the Cabot Trail to the Columbia Icefield, from the Bay of Fundy to the Northern Lights. Small acts of solidarity, repeated millions of times. Proving that together, we can give ourselves far more than anyone can take away.
Yes, but it's okay, because best believe the Liberal government will take it away from you. We can give each other a lot of prosperity. I talk about it all the time, but it's going to get taxed to the smithereens.
Look, there will always be forces that want to divide us.
Here he goes. We had to have the division talk. It's coming, baby.
But they forget a founding insight of our country, that unity is not uniformity, that our differences are strengths to be nurtured, not risks to be managed, that our values serve as our unshakable foundation that no one can take away. Inclusivity, sustainability, solidarity. Today, we celebrate each other, a land of kind, compassionate, and hardworking people, as remarkable and diverse as the landscapes we all call home.
Okay, pal, what an inspiring speech about unity. Let me just quote you a little bit. In a more dangerous and divided world, and then, oh, there's a rapture happening around the world. There's a rapture happening, and there's a new world order at our footsteps. And what else? Our relationship with the US will never be what it once was. Are you sure that we are as united as you make it seem to be? Because to me, it seems like Canada is happy to be united. You're the one who's pushing for division. And nothing says unity as much as letting USMCA go into review, effectively admitting defeat and saying we don't have a new deal with the United States. What a load of unity. Thank you so much.
If you ask the Prime Minister, the only Canada Day fireworks in Ottawa will be on Parliament Hill.
I wouldn't expect any drama tomorrow. I'm not looking for my pen.
A dismissive Mark Carney not worried about the July 1st deadline to renew the Canada-US-Mexico free trade deal for 16 more years.
There's a virtual meeting with the 3 partners tomorrow. We're expecting a constructive exchange.
An exchange with a predetermined outcome.
Well, I'm not looking to renew it. I don't, I made the deal.
But just because the Americans don't want to renew doesn't mean the deal is dead. The next step, annual reviews.
I love how there's no sense of urgency for Mark Carney, and he doesn't seem to realize the pain that this is going to bring to Canada. But the best for me is the mainstream media trying to run cover and explaining that it's not that traumatic, it's not that dangerous. Well, let's explain why this is going to be the end of our economy as we know it. But first,
a live look at both Parliament Hill and Washington ahead of tomorrow's deadline for a joint review of the trade pact between Canada, the US and Mexico. Let's now bring in CTV's Annie Berger and Oliver now with more from Ottawa. Annie, good morning. So where does Canada really stand right now when it comes to trade talks with the US?
Well, I think that's the big question that everyone's asking, and I think it ultimately depends on who you're asking as well. The Canadians have said they've had very positive talks so far with the Americans, and that this virtual meeting tomorrow will be a good chance to build on and improve those discussions. Important to note, though, that Canada is further behind than Mexico. We have not started any of our formal talks. These have so far just been informal talks with our American counterparts, whereas if you look at Mexico, 2 rounds at least of formal talks have already started. So tomorrow will be the first time that all three, Canada, US, and Mexico, get to sit down virtually anyway and discuss this trilateral agreement. So, you know, the Canadians say that we're in a good position, that we have had good constructive discussions so far. They've also argued, Akshay, that there were more trade issues that the Americans had to deal with when it came to Mexico than with Canada. But I think if you ask a lot of industries, they're feeling really insecure right now and saying that the stability that this CUSMA agreement has provided is no longer there, and that it's difficult for them to plan in the years ahead, not knowing whether or not there are going to be tariffs in place or even an agreement in place, Akshay.
so it's official. The US declared that they are exiting USMCA, and we're not calling it CUSMA anymore. It's always been USMCA, which starts a decade-long countdown for the pact. What's going to happen now is that we're entering yearly reviews. So every year, it's a year-by-year thing up until the expiry of the deal in the 2030s. And from there, God knows what happens. We might not even have a trade deal anymore. And I'll explain why this is catastrophic today for Canada. But first, let's highlight how we even got here, because we've been getting gaslit for the last year and a half now, being told that Mark Carney was the best to negotiate a deal. That's effectively why he was elected, to stand up to Trump and to negotiate on Canada's behalf. And to quote, "We will get an even better deal," Carney says from the Oval Office meeting with Trump, dated October 8th, 2025. So what deal have we gotten? Because right now, the answer is none. Actually, we're in a worse off position because the US has signaled that they are withdrawing from USMCA. So as such, not only do we not have a better deal, we have none. And that realization that comes upon you, that dawns upon you when you realize that Justin Trudeau was a better negotiator with Donald Trump than Mark Carney is. And this should tell you everything you need to know. See, Mark Carney is not a businessman. Mark Carney is a finance executive. He's never negotiated anything to do with businesses himself. He's never built any business himself. He's only learned how to manage. Managing is very different than building. Now compare that to the president of the US. He's a builder. He's a literal deal maker. That's been his entire life, and it shows. I mean, to be honest with you, Trudeau was at least negotiating. He was trying. Carney just avoids it altogether. But Elliot, it's fine. We're diversifying our economy, right? Well, we were told that China was going to take the place of the US. Well, how is that going? Because China, our brand new trade partner, our allies, supposedly just slapped yesterday 73.5% tariffs on Canadian pea starch. This comes after we opened the floodgates to their crappy EVs coming from China in order to appease them, which, by the way, pissed off the US big time, and which at the same time shot herself in the foot when it comes to our own domestic automakers. So right now, even our newest, greatest ally is laughing at us. And this is the realization Canadians never understood. China is not our friend. China is a zero-sum game. They want to dominate. They're really good at it. They'll promise you anything. They'll pretend to be your friend. But then after that, when the time is ripe, they can backstab you in a heartbeat. And this has exactly been shown. When you realize that the US has not treated us as poorly as China, then you start realizing, why are we even fighting with the US? And disregard the fact that we share the world's longest undefended border with the United States, the world's largest economy, largest market, which represents 25% of the entire world's economy at our doorstep, with integrated supply chain, integrated policy, integrated standards about labor and environment. Why are we even fighting the US? And nothing inspires more confidence in our government than a high-ranking minister looking surprised at the announcement that the US was withdrawing from USMCA.
Jeff Stephen with Global National. Your reaction to Reuters reporting that that the U.S. is going to be pulling out of CUSMA, and what would this mean for Canadian industry?
Well, I just learned the news here 30 seconds ago. Of course, I'll have the chance to talk.
Hey, this is my MP. This is the Speaker of the House, Francis Scarpaleggio. What's up, buddy? I don't know what he's doing there. He looks completely lost, but anyways.
I'll have the chance to talk with the Prime Minister and the Minister in charge of U.S.-Canada trade. And when we'll have more to say, we'll have more to say. These are information through a media source. And of course, we'll be waiting for any official conversation.
Why did you look surprised? What, this is news to you? You didn't realize that we were heading for the wall already? God, we are ran by incompetency. Or maybe she just hasn't received her script yet from the Politburo back at the Liberal headquarters telling her exactly what to say to spin it like this is a good thing somehow. So Mark Carney says, don't worry about it. We have 10 years of free trade with annual reviews. Well, he said the same thing about grocery prices, and housing, and the deficit, and the Canadian dollar. But here's what businesses actually heard today. The most important trade relationship in Canada's history has now an expiry date. Annual reviews means annual uncertainty. Annual uncertainty means no 25-year investment horizon. No 25-year investment horizon means no factory, no expansion, no headquarters, no jobs. Because heavy industries, the ones that employ thousands upon thousands of people, have massive capital expenditure capex, which they amortize over 25 plus years. With no certainty on the horizon, why invest in Canada? Especially considering that the US is already more competitive. Capital already fled Canada at the tune of more than $1 trillion over the last decade. That was before USMCA had an expiry date. Now we learned that China just tariffed one of our goods at 73.5%. Carney is saying it's totally fine, but the boardrooms of every single major Canadian corporation today are definitely calling it something different. Watch the Canadian dollar. Watch the investment numbers. Watch the job postings. They'll tell you what's actually fine and what isn't. So it seems our Prime Minister might be cool as a cucumber on the outside, but on the inside, he's in damage control. Because he's spammed X with 37 posts in the last 24 hours, most of them trying to recapture the narrative regarding USMCA. This isn't someone who's in control. Rather, it's someone who's in damage control.
I promised you I wouldn't sugarcoat tough messages.
Good, so tell us you failed and that it's all because of you and your team, and then tell us how you're going to fix it.
The climate plan we inherited from the previous government was well-intentioned and well-suited for the times in which it was designed. The climate crisis is still with us, and our commitment to fighting it is absolute. The certainties of the world of 2015 are long gone.
Why? What's so uncertain today that was so certain back then?
Our neighborhood hasn't been this hostile since when Canada was founded.
Right. Well, that's what happens when you have open borders and you import a bunch of individuals whose culture is sadly not compatible with ours, spiking the crime rate. Oh, wait, is that the neighborhood being dangerous you were talking about?
The world hasn't been this unstable geopolitically since the end of the Second World War.
Right. Geopolitics is unstable because of what again? It couldn't possibly be because you're picking a fight with our largest partner, alliance, ally, and best friend ever. No, it's not because of that.
We must establish stability amidst this chaos. The energy transition will be a source of great stability in the long run.
Wait, why do we need an energy transition? What's so bad with oil? The entire world needs it. We have it. We could be rich. Wealth would bring stability. But no, you're hell-bent on transition. Why the transition? It couldn't possibly be due to the fact that you have a direct vested interest in the Brookfield Global Transition Fund that wants to take away all oil energy sectors and instead invest in net zero BS that doesn't work.
But while it's underway, it can equally be a source of disruption.
Translation, while we're ripping you off with this new energy sector that doesn't work, you will go broke.
No country is better positioned to thrive in both eras than Canada.
No country has Brookfield implemented within its leadership as much as Canada.
And we need not allow the transition from one era to another to pull us apart.
You won't like to see this, but this is everything that's wrong in Canada, represented in a single graph. Over the last decade, Canada got considerably poorer compared to our southern neighbor, and not just by a little bit, by a whopping 20%. What is striking is that this is a direct tribute to the destruction that one bad party and one bad government can do to a country in a short amount of time. Because prior to 2015 and the election of the Liberal Party, Canada was always on par with the US in terms of economic growth. We're looking here at real GDP per capita. From as far back as the 1990s, as US grew so did Canada. Both of our countries stayed on par in terms of wealth. But since 2015, the decoupling started. But the most damning part of it all is that the gap is actually widening and accelerating. And there appears to be no reversal in sight. Oh, and no, 1 year of Prime Minister Carney being in office actually did not solve anything. If anything, it actually got worse.
Alongside our collaboration with G7 partners, President Macron and myself also strengthened the ties between our two countries. Within the last year, trade between Canada and France has gone up by 10%. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for that. In recent months, we signed new cooperation agreements in defense, quantum technology, and transport.
Businesses in both of our countries are doing more together in energy, defense, critical minerals, and now in AI.
Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Diversification is great and we need to have as much diversity as we can in our economy. You don't want to be reliant on just one cash cow, but also you have to look at the world for what it is and not what you wish it to be. Cough, cough, Carney's direct quote. You can't replace the United States, and increasing 10% of your trade with France is, okay, that's cool. That's a good start. It means nothing in the grand scheme of things because Canada and France's trade represents roughly $12 billion annually. So a 10% increase is what? $1.2 billion. Yippity freaking do. Compare that to the Canada-US trade, which stands at $1.1 trillion or $1,100 billion. There you go. That's a little bit bigger, isn't it? So we're risking 75% of our trade to increase 1.2 billion with France. Cool, man. God, let's celebrate. It's Canada Day. Let's celebrate this victory. I mean, we're at a point where even the British Broadcasting Corporation is asking the questions that nobody here in Canada is asking. Just how much trouble is Canada's economy in? And they look at so many metrics, like, for example, Canada's youth unemployment rate higher than recent years. Oh yeah, that's a solid growth. Not a good thing. But one thing I want to directly show you is that when recession was announced in Canada, the Liberals, Carney, ran to the fact that, you know, Canada is the one that's the most exposed to the US. That's why we're in a recession. The US is big bad wolf, and it's because of that we're in a recession. Well, first of all, the US put tariffs on the entire world, and only Canada is in a recession. Number two, most of our goods are still protected by USMCA, which means that most of our goods are still tariff-free. But number three, Mexico actually has a larger share of trade with the US than Canada does, at least according to April 2026's data. So Canada's issues are not a direct result of the US. Rather, they are self-inflicted. Canada's elite have spent a quarter century turning a rich, opportunity-dense economy into a slow-growth, over-leveraged dead end, and they still insist nothing is structurally wrong. There is no sense crying over past mistakes when the architects of this stagnation are still in charge and are still in denial. Canada didn't just drift into stagnation. Rather, it embraced a kind of virtue-signaling socialism and an industrial policy anchored on climate change targets rather than productive capacity, competitiveness, and growth. An economy built on world-class natural resources, on strategic geography, and on human capital has been deliberately castrated and downgraded into a housing-addicted, low-productivity balance sheet recession risk, and the people who did it still show up on panels calling this resilience. For years, Canada's advantages in energy, in resources, in industrial capacity were something to apologize for, to regulate to death, to tax into oblivion, while policy and capital chased the illusion that you could mortgage and virtue signal your way to prosperity. The result is a country that is choked by overpriced assets, underbuilt productive capital, and households too damaged to borrow again. The real scandal is that the elite engineered it, defended it, promoted it, wrapped it up in virtue signal, and now today are scapegoating Trump, the US, and world events for their poor policy.
In BC, Simon Fraser University openly posted for 15 Black-only faculty positions. The Aristotle Foundation found that 98% of 500 academic job postings across Canada contained DEI-based discrimination. At UBC, 2/3 of job postings required candidates to show their commitment to left-wing politics in the name of DEI. Jobs should go to the most qualified candidate, regardless of sex or race. You want your plane flown by the best pilot and your scalpel wielded by the best surgeon. You care about their skills not their skin color.
To be clear, Canada's problems are not a result of Trump's actions. They are all self-inflicted with rhetoric like this, promoting DEI and climate hysteria over real-world productivity and economy. And we can continue to cajole ourselves into thinking we're morally superior than our southern neighbors, but for the time being, we just have nothing. Actually, one thing we have is a really cringy prime minister. Yeah, let's have a little bit more fun now, okay? It's still Canada Day. And as it is customary on Canada Day, apparently, the prime minister must flip pancakes. Why does he look like he's just accomplished something? Man, congratulations, man. You're proud of flipping a pancake. Now you know what? I'd be okay with his reaction, even though it's cringe and awkward, if at least it was like, we signed a deal with the US. Now compare it to what seems to be a well-adjusted, normal man who is not awkward and weird.
All right. Look at that, eh? Hey.
Unimpressed. Just, hey, a pancake flip, baby. To be honest with you, just these two videos side by side gives me more, and you're going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but I much rather the demeanor of a guy who's calm and composed and just like, yeah, here you go, I'm a man. I can flip a pancake. What's so special? Than like a little child like, yes, I flipped a pancake. I don't know. It's just these little things. Maybe it's intuition, but these little behavioral traits just showcase the type of individual behind the mask. And on this crazy liberal ticket a day, some more weird temperament coming from other very emasculated leaders. We're going to the UK, where Keir Starmer said the quiet part out loud. Actually, it was very loud to begin with.
Really proud that we've got the gayest parliament. I don't think just of all time anywhere in the world, I don't think there's any parliament that is gayer than this parliament.
Well, you heard it here, folks. I don't know what else to say to that. Makes you wonder what happens behind closed doors at 10 Downing Street. But the walls are closing in on Mark Carney, and his time might just be running out, as he will be facing a conflicts of interest probe straight out of the House of Commons in the foreseeable future. If you want a breakdown as to what's happening with that, click on the video right here. I explain it all. But for the time being, it is Canada Day, so let's go enjoy it. If you want to find yourself a way to get involved with the channel, aside from liking, sharing, subscribing, loving, hyping, all the good stuff, if you want to take a step further and help donate to the cause, to the research, and to the time I dedicate to these reports, well, there is a link for Patreon, a monthly subscription, and or just a one-time donation. There's a PayPal link. It's all greatly appreciated. But happy Canada Day. Let's go celebrate some barbecue, a little brewski here and there, some fireworks tonight. Yes, fireworks. We don't care if they're loud. My name's Ellie Daniel, and I'll see you next time.